Shall we try it again? Hey, Jeff, good morning.
Good morning, Ammar.
I think I think there's 2 minutes left of our show now.
Yeah, it's kind of
Uh,
seven. It's 7 minutes in,
just
but
gosh,
there's lots of important community announcements there to be made. So we will patiently wait so that everyone in the community can figure out where to plan and the events that they can go to the next few weeks.
yeah, wonderful, wonderful. It's all good. It's although it didn't sound as fluid as it could or should have. Anyway, good morning, listeners and viewers. You're listening to Ammar and
Jaff,
live on our weekly radio show right here on Spice FM.
each week we'll try and bring some views, news, and one or two clues from the business world.
Yeah. Asian Business Connections aims to connect, support, and promote the Asian and wider communities.
And we will be talking shop quite literally, not just corner shops. So they're looking to start a business, have an existing business, or you just want to talk business, we can help.
We can help. We can help. And we do. We do. Anyway, it's maybe it's because it's Friday the 13th is what it is, Jeff.
Mm-hmm. Scary.
Scary. Spooky. Feels cold. I mean, I can say that with all some level of certainty.
It's what, cold?
Cold. Yeah. Winter's here.
Yeah, I think
Winter's
the
coming.
weather beginning to turn. I think you see more and more people with their jackets now, which is it's not bad, Amar. We kind of mid October, so we've kind of done quite well, I think, because there could be years where in October it's a lot milder than what it is at the moment.
Mm. Yeah. It is. It does. And it could. Yesterday, it was a beautiful day. In fact, the sun
Mm.
was shining. It was, see a dragonfly flying around. Anyway, um, yeah. So what's happening in the headlines? Gosh,
Uh, yeah,
we,
I don't know how much we want to talk about the big world news that's obviously probably covering every single mainstream
it's it's
newspaper. But I think all we can say on a Friday is that in the world, I think we need peace. We need the powers that be. I think what disappoints me the most, Amar, is I just feel that the people in positions of power and the most powerful people in the world who can make decisions, I just wish that they cared more about peace and more about humanity and the lives of people, um, especially non-militants, as in, people that are not involved in the war, the families, the fathers, the mothers, the children. I think until we have the big powers that are prepared to make decisions for peace, I think there's always going to be war, regardless of who the war is with. And I think that fundamental change, we can only just pray for that and hope that there's a quick end to the war in Gaza, Palestine, Israel, whatever you want to call it. Beyond that, I think there's no point having big debates about who's responsible
no,
and
no, I, gosh, and we can't because we're regulated anyway. Um,
I think.
I just want to share. I just want to share some of my despair as a human being.
Mhm.
And that's the extent. I cannot express how sad and genuinely upset in the state of affairs are. And an eye for an eye just simply makes people blind, doesn't it? Is what it does.
Uh,
It's like,
I don't think. I think it's not quite an eye for an eye.
no, of
It's an
course it's
eye.
not. It's an eye for your life, isn't it? Is what it is. But anyway, it's anyway, as you say, I don't know how
I don't
much
think.
we
I
can.
don't think. Amar, it's not. I don't think the. And I think we're not gonna. I just feel that there's no point going into it on our show. But I also feel against there being regulations or new regulations that they just decide to put in place. Oh, you can't talk about
Oh
this. You can't
no,
talk
it
about.
wasn't that. So
I mean,
let me just clarify.
yeah,
Let me just clarify something there, Jaff, because I was listening with interest to Mashal Hussain on BBC Radio 4 this morning, and the Defence Secretary was there.
uh-huh.
And actually, I don't think there's anything wrong with the relaying a conversation that I heard
Yeah,
on the radio show.
yeah,
And I'm really, and I was listening to it. So Mashal Hussain asks the Defence Secretary, so do you think it is okay for 1.1 million people to have to move out? And is that the UK government's stance? And his response was, well, the Israeli army, they've given them notice, and that's good enough. And Mashal Hussain says, okay, but do you think it is okay to ask 1.1 million people to move out of their homes because an army is coming to invade and they're going to kill everybody there? And these individuals may be in hospital, they may be wherever it is. Do you think it's reasonable for those people to be forced to move out within 24 hours? And he was like, well, I believe it's fair that anyway. And then his response to that was, well, I think it's incredible that the BBC won't call these individuals terrorists when they've been prescribed as terrorists, and and it's outrageous, sort of saying that. And this is all recorded, this is all on public radio. And her response was, we are governed by Ofcom. Whatever we say, we have to remain independent and impartial. And it's not just the BBC, it is every single media outlet that is governed by the same rules. And anyway, this conversation went back and forth, and the point where I was nearly in tears was listening to the fact that sadly, unless you follow a particular view, you're wrong, right?
mm,
So unless you have in the world sat here right now, unless you have a view, a view, whether it's right or wrong, whatever it is, unless you have that view, you are wrong, and your organization is wrong, and everything you stand for is wrong, and everything that you do is wrong. I'm just horrified at that thought, but equally, I was then reflecting on, imagine just for 1 second, and I appreciate we're getting into something, and we wholeheartedly said we didn't, but I'm just hypothesizing here, right? The IRA did not represent every single person in Ireland, right? The IRA did not represent every single person in Ireland. Imagine if the British Army had gone into Ireland and sort of gone, right, we're going to kill everyone because actually they're Irish. I'm just sort of, and I don't know, I'm just sort of hypothesizing that. Anyway, I'm going to stop because,
I
as
mean,
you say,
I think ultimately, what the point.
I think it's worth noting. It's abhorrent. It is the most disgusting thing, whatever has happened to any civilians in Israel in any shape, fashion, or form. And I find that incredibly abhorrent.
I think I
And
think
equally, I'm going to stop there.
yeah, of course. And I just want to add to the point without speaking about the war itself. When you have a look about, I mean, I remember actually I had the privilege to meet Tony Benn many years ago, and he was at he was doing. I think did you go with? I can't remember if you went with us, but we went,
Yeah, we did.
and
We did.
he
We
did a
met
talk.
Tony Benn. Well, we
He
also
did a
met. Can you remember? Actually, I don't know whether we should be saying this, but we met. we met representatives from Palestine who'd come over here, and
Well,
these
no,
these are people.
I think I just
Because
wanted
the thing to highlight, sorry, Jeff, just the thing to
to,
highlight here is not everybody living in Palestine is a terrorist.
yeah, of course. I think what the biggest thing for me when he spoke about the UN, he said that look, we should all be thankful that the powers that be, however many years ago, they created an organization called the United Nations, which is there to seek peace and justice in the world, regardless. And if you think about it, Ammar, if you're going to be the justice minister, the justice should apply to every single individual equally. If you have a set of rules and guidelines and there's international law, that international law, let's say the UK law, if you go and run somebody over in a car, it should be the same punishment whether it's A, B, C, and D, regardless of who they are, regardless of whether they're rich or whether they're powerful or which race or creed or background that they're from. Those rules should apply to every single person equally. If you think about justice, I think that's fair justice. But if if the UN has been set up as a body to implement this all over the world, and then you have international law defined in the Geneva Convention and A, B, C, and D. So then, if the people openly that are in positions of power, and let me give you an example, and again, this is wide open, of Ursula von der Leyen, who's the EU leader, saying just a year ago when the Russians, they attacked the infrastructure and certain electric generators, and they came out and made a very, very strong statement immediately. This is a war crime. They've attacked denying civilians of electric and gas and energy is a war crime. Fine. Make a note of it and punish the Russians if that's what they have done. But yet, when it's been done in this particular war by the Israelis on taking away all the gas, all the electricity, all food, and there's no actual mention. So then you think to yourself, hold on, the power structure, the UN, is it as credible as it should be? Because there seems to be double
Yeah,
standards. And
well,
the
actually, well,
hypocrisy,
I mean, that's just generally politics or what they are. I
but,
think
but
what's
I
really
understand.
important is,
I understand,
I
Emma,
think,
but
no, but all I'm saying is that we don't know what we don't know. I think it is absolutely, and just to reinforce that point, I can only but imagine, the challenges. That is everything that has happened. We sat here. It's really, really important that no one perceives or that we have a view on either way. The reason why I was sharing, Mashal Hussein's point was, and this was my point that I was trying to make, is that I'm talking about either side of a view. You know, it's wrong for people to be forced to have a view on either side. And unless you have that view, you're wrong. And I think that was the point that I'm trying to make. I mean, these circumstances, gosh, I think I don't know where they're going to go, and I don't know where they're going to end. It's just a very sad, sad state of affairs when, regardless of whatever your religion, your culture, your creed, you're suffering in this way. And may God, and whoever they believe in, protect them, as equally and as fairly as possible. And may peace be upon all of us wherever it can.
of course,
And
and
anyway, the other news, so Newcastle United, they're going to host the 2028 UEFA Cup.
um, the I think Newcastle United are gonna have some matches as a part of the the Europe.
Yeah, sorry, that was it. Yeah, they're not
Yeah,
going to host.
part of the European Cup in 2028.
Yeah,
I think
yeah,
we've been selected as one of the clubs or one of the stadiums where we're going to we're going to have some matches. I'm not sure exactly which ones, but I think it's great news for the city, Ammar.
yeah. It
Because
is.
and rightfully, you know that the European Cup, it needs to be spread around the country, and we are the powerhouse in the north. And the fact is, football is so big in Newcastle. It's going to add so much atmosphere, and it's going to add so much to the European Cup itself. It's going to be amazing for the city, and it's going to be amazing for the tournament.
I think it's great. I think it's great, and it's the buzz associated with what's going on and such like is really good.
I mean, just on
Obviously,
that, Mark, we were wondering whether that might give the owners a little bit of incentive to push the expansion of the stadium and try and make that a bit bigger. I think there are talks about it, and whether that would give
yeah,
them that.
I think that planning will go through. Um, is what it will. Um, And sorry, I'm just reading some messages in the chat that we're getting, and people listening in. Thank you very much for listening. Um, Sadly, we don't set the rules, and we need to simply comply with them. That equally doesn't mean we don't have our own views. It's when using this type of media and medium, it's quite important to remain uh, as impartial as you possibly can. Um, yeah, so I think the planning will go through, Jeff, when we talk about um,
But Amar, when you
when
talk
we
about the
talk.
planning,
Yeah,
you've got the Gallagher end, and then you've got the East Stand, right? So,
well,
what do
the
you think is going to
Gallagher
happen on
and
the Gallagher end, which is
Strawberry,
the bit.
Strawberry Lane, Strawberry, the
Well,
Strawberry side.
Gallagher End is effectively the bit where you've got Shearer's bar on that side. So
Yeah,
the idea is to obviously lift that tier up um, to the same kind of size and height as it is in the Milburn stand. So wrap that angle around. But the issues on that side, Amar, is you've got the St James's Metro below it. So there has to be whether they can how far they can go down and the impact on the metro, and so the structural engineers will have to come up, which they're probably working on. So it's not an easy thing. There's also the situation with the road. Do they close that road, or do they leave the road going through? As they've done in some stadiums, like the old Atletico Madrid stadium, the cars can actually go beneath the stadium. So are they going to do that? So there's a few issues that they need to resolve there, because I think they probably can't close that road because of the proximity of the hospital.
yeah.
So there's that. There's another solution that's required there, and then obviously when you go to the east stand, you've got the issues of the listed grade 2 listed buildings, and there's a couple of those that are in the way. So obviously it'd be really interesting to see what the stance is on the city council and the listed buildings people. But then I guess the argument would
Yeah, I
be
don't
that.
think you could do. I certainly wouldn't be comfortable with anything happening on the old Lees's terracey type of properties at all. You know, as in,
But Amar, there
you know,
was
the listed.
The owner of the bit right next to the stadium. Where would you call it? It's not the Lees's Park. It's not the Lees's ones. You know the big. What do you call the other ones where it goes around the square? So you've got two parts of it, right? You've got the bit near the main road, near the Strawberry. There's a group of buildings there. The owner actually came and he said that, look, I would be prepared to do a deal with the club on all of these. I own every single one of these properties. He's an Asian fella, and he is prepared to do a deal on those particular ones. And he suggested that what they could do is on the other part, towards the other big old the Granger House buildings. I can't remember what they're called. But he was saying that if you were able, the issue there is the light. So if you come up with something creative where that particular area is done where lots of light comes through and it doesn't affect the light, you can go right butt up to as close as possible, but make sure the light comes in and you might get permission. So I think they're working on a few creative solutions, and hopefully they'll obviously get the best of the best together, and maybe they'll have the um, they'll have the ear of the city council to try and push things through as quickly as possible, because it is going to be for the greater benefit of the city and beyond, and maybe they do take these things into consideration. So it'll be interesting to see what their timeline is and what they are able to do.
Absolutely. We've got a guest coming on our show, the an amazing individual who's been supporting ABC for a very, very long time. I'm trying to click on the bit that lets me click him in. And we didn't do that, but we're doing this. Here's our special guest. Um, we've got a bit of an article on inclusion as well, but it's wonderful to see our brother from another mother. Brother from another mother, are you there?
Hi, how we doing?
Hey, Shohel, how you doing?
I'm really good.
Sahil,
Jalf, how are you?
are you winning? Are you winning?
Always, or at least endeavoring to do so.
Wonderful, wonderful. So thank you ever so much for joining us. We've got your illustrious logos here. You're our special guest, as is being displayed on my screen at least. Let me turn that off and let's kick off, Sahil. You look younger and younger every time I see you. Obviously, you're
I had
doing
to shave
something
for the
right.
occasion. I realised it was a video meeting, so I thought better get cleaned up.
Yeah, lovely, lovely. Yeah, you'll have to give me some top tips. Is what you'll have to do. So let's kick off. Sahil, who are you? What do you do? Why do you do it?
So my name's Sahil Khan, and I'm the managing director of two companies. One is Opus Motor Group, and the other one is Iron City Motorcycles. So I've been working in automotive for about, I would say, 12 years now. It wasn't the original path I chose. I originally started my career in the semi-medical field. I was a physiotherapist, and through life's odd twists and turns and a little bit of coercion from my father, I ended up in the motor trade and thoroughly enjoyed it and haven't looked back.
Well done. And that was, I'm sure that sounded far too short based
All
on
right.
what I know you have done. And so it wasn't just about, what do you do in the sense of what was your career? It's more broadly than that as well, isn't it? It's like, so tell us about um, what you do and why you do it.
What I do and why I do it. Okay, so what I do is, like I said, I work in the automotive industry, and I'm following on really a legacy that my father built. So my dad was Naz Khan, and he kind of worked with and in and operated the Jennings Motor Group,
Right?
which was quite well known in the Northeast, won a lot of prestigious awards. And in 2018, he decided to sell the business to this PLC, but we maintained a smaller part of it, which
Right.
was the Kia dealership in Stockton and Harley Davidson stores. So what I did initially was just start to operate and maintain those businesses, and by operate and maintain, it's like I kind of oversee the daily operations of the Kia dealership, which is now, Alhamdulillah, become the biggest retail Kia dealership in the UK. So we do more
Fantastic.
new,
Amazing.
yeah. So we do more new cars than any other dealership in the country. So our current new car delivery is about 700 new cars. And the fact that we do that from Stockton is record breaking, should I say? So it's quite an achievement to be selling that many cars out of London. But Kia as a brand are fantastic, and they're a great partner to work with. And they actually, I've worked with many brands over the last 10 to sort of 15 years. And I have to say that in terms of support and really kind of having a good partnership between the dealers and the brand, Kia is second to none, I would say. And so you look like you've got a question there, Amma. I've seen them cogs
No,
turning.
I have, because there's lots of people joining us, and I'm trying to work out, were you expecting others to join you from your side?
I don't think so. I don't know. Well, the thing
Um,
is, I'll say one thing: we're a family business, so
yeah.
everybody's a bit nosy. But I like that because we all, if one person's not doing something right, then there's about 10 other people that kind of pick it up and carry on with it. So, um, it's lovely in that sense.
So, Shohel, just on that point, do you feel
Yeah.
that being a family business and having the options that you've mentioned, does that in many ways help develop your business quicker and faster? Or do you, in comparison to the more conventional methods?
I think there's several benefits I think to having it as a family business. And when I say a family business, there used to be other family members who were working with me, but now I class it a family business in terms of, well, it's owned by an individual, which is myself, and then I'm actually classing all the people I work with as my family as well, because unlike a lot of places in the motor industry or a lot of automotive companies, we pride ourselves on the length of period that the staff kind of stay with us. So one of the things I'm massively proud of is that most of my general managers, I've either known them for my entire life or they've worked in the company for the last 10 to 15 years or even 20 years in some cases, which if we look around within the motor industry is really rare. People tend to hop around from store to store, they'll do 3 years, 5 years maximum. The general manager at our Kia dealership worked with my father before he worked with me, and he's actually continuous service, been 42 years.
Wow.
So yeah. Sorry, Jeff, what was the other question you said?
No, that was it, really. It was just comparing. So I guess what you're saying is you've got to, whilst they're not your real blood families, but it's the culture of a family setup. So,
Yes.
so I guess you probably only known that really in terms of because of the history of being involved with your father. But as you said, there's not many showrooms that would have that family business culture. So, but clearly by having that culture, you've probably it's benefited the showroom a lot more than maybe others that don't have that culture.
It's benefited us hugely, and I'll tell you exactly why. So 5 years ago, when we sold to Lookers PLC, that was a very emotional time for me. One, because I lost my father very soon after, but the other thing was, so I was if you want to call it, a motor industry brat. So, my first work experience was when I was 12 years old in the parts department of one of the dealerships. And then I spent time working in the admin, a little bit of time on the sales floor. So I got to know so many different people. I mean, at one point, Jennings had 550 staff, and they'd all had like different family members working in there. So if your dad worked at Jennings, turns out the son worked in a different department, or the daughter or the wife worked somewhere else. And that was lovely. And sadly, when we sold the biggest part of the business, a lot of those relationships, well, I kept in touch with a lot of people and so maintained a lot of those relationships. And it was sad to hear the experiences people were having when they went and joined these large PLCs, because they said, well, look, I feel like I've become a number. My ideas aren't really taken on board, even though I'm, relatively expert in those. And so what happened over the next few years really benefited me, because what happened was the cream rose, and a lot of the people who I placed a lot of value in um, rang me up and said, look, is there any opportunity for me within the new company? Is there anything I can do within the new setup? So even though we were starting to gear my business more towards motorcycles, which I'll come on to, um, I was finding that people from the Jennings group kind of wanted to come back and work with me again. And so, as you were saying about, do I find that being a smaller family business, we can adapt and move within our environment? Yes, we can. Our digital marketing team is constantly getting praised and winning awards because of the fact that we're very reactive. Whereas if you're, say, a much larger entity, it's almost like you're a much larger tanker trying to turn in, the same waters, whereas we're more nimble. So, for example, our TikTok account, um, whilst it's still quite difficult to use as an advertising platform, in terms of getting messages out and things like that, we're very, very effective. And so we've received a lot of compliments and gained notoriety a little bit on the methods that we implement. But we can only do that because we're smaller, if that makes sense.
Yeah, of course, absolutely. I can connect to that.
Yeah. Yeah, so as you were asking before, so the direction of our business for the last 5 years, like I said, the automotive industry is quite, how should we say it? It's dominated by the PLCs and much larger companies than myself. So even though we're the biggest Kia retail dealer in the country, we're still a very small fry when it comes to business in general. And so what I took a slightly different approach to my dad. I decided to do everything on two wheels as opposed to four, because the motorcycle industry is actually a little bit, or it was a little bit behind in terms of its processes, the methodologies they use in terms of going to market. So with the experience that I had working with my father and also what I bring to the business, we've decided with Iron City Motorcycles to expand our offering in the Northeast. And due to our performance with Harley Davidson, we've managed to attract several new brands into the company. So as of January next year, Iron City Motorcycles will represent not only Harley Davidson in the Northeast, but we're going to be representing KTM Motorcycles, Husqvarna, Gas, Royal Enfield, Kawasaki, Aprilia, Moto Guzzi, and Vespa. So lots of exciting things to come.
They're great. They're great brands, aren't they? They're like sort of iconic. So you've gone for, because the other thing that I like here, right, is to let's talk about the camel in the room. Because some of those brands that you're representing, well, obviously people talk about the elephant. I like the camel,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
That's
Okay.
because people get the hump. Anyway, that was a poor joke. The the camel in the room is not only are you such a successful entrepreneur, but the brands that you've chosen are typically associated with a particular type of following and things like that, aren't they? As in, you wouldn't
Yeah.
normally say, wouldn't normally say,
Well,
I know,
looks like me.
what do you, someone like your who wears glasses. You wouldn't normally see someone who's,
No,
of
I'll
your
be
color,
honest. Yeah.
and
Yes.
riding around in a Harley Davidson, would you?
No, you wouldn't. And I'll be honest with you, I've got a very funny anecdote, and I'll watch the words I use because I know this is a daytime radio show. But so when we took over, so the Harley Davidson story was my dad had a very good reputation within the automotive industry of processes and success in terms of customer care and things like that. So there were always brands approaching him to say, look, if you apply your formula, then you could do really well with us. And Harley Davidson was one such brand, but my dad had no interest in bikes. And also, he too, like yourself, there was this image that we all have of what is a Harley Davidson rider. It's a guy with a big belly and a beard and lots of tattoos and not the most welcoming community. Whereas I found it to be the exact opposite. It was unreal. When we joined the Harley Davidson family, I'll call it, and they call themselves the original social network. So before Facebook, there was Harley Owners Group, which is HOG, which is one of the biggest sort of automotive communities in the world. And the truth is, they've been nothing but welcoming and fantastic. And the funny comment, when I first opened the store, there was one of the motorcycle clubs, shall we call it, the notorious ones. A whole gang of those guys rocked up, and the biggest fella you've ever seen with tattoos and a giant piercing through his nose, put his huge arm around me and said, "Do you know what? I was really worried when I heard that you guys, naming a particular word, had taken over the store." He says, "But you're actually all right." And I was like, "All right, that's a strange but kind nod of approval you've given me there."
Mm.
So that was one of the nice ones. And then the second part of it was during my career with Harley, and this was about 7 or 8 years ago, because I started with Harley Davidson 12 years ago. Um, I decided to visit America because every year Harley Davidson have what's called the annual dealer show, where they showcase their new products and they choose a different state to do it in each year. And so one year it was in Denver, Colorado, which is a place I always wanted to see more of. And so before the show was taking place, I decided to fly out 3 or 4 days earlier and go riding around the Rocky Mountains on a bike, which my mother, God bless her, thought was an insane idea. But again, with the community and with biking community in general, everywhere I stopped, the minute I took off my helmet, yeah, there was that kind of look of surprise, but people were curious and they wanted to know my story and they wanted to talk to me, and it was lovely. And like I think it was the second day I was there. I'm a big horror movie buff, so I wanted to go and see where The Shining was filmed. And I asked one of these bikers at one of these biker stops that I went to, and he said, "Oh, don't worry, I'll show you." And before you knew it, there was like four of his friends with me, and we were all riding, in sequence, all taking me, and not only taking me, they paid for me to go in and bought me lunch, and kind of were sharing all these stories about phenomenal rides they had. So it was lovely.
It's
Um,
amazing. And you're still here. I thought the story was going to abruptly end in a
right.
bit of a quick chop, literally in every sense. Oh, I mean, I must admit, right, because Carolina, North Carolina, South Carolina, they're definitely sort of God-fearing country type of place and space, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
and the Rockies and all of that. It's like um, having been there personally and visited places like Dollywood, which is you're talking about sort of very masculine based activities, and here's me talking about Dolly Parton
Hey,
world.
I'm a massive
Um,
fan of
yeah,
Dolly Parton myself. Okay, one of the best concerts I ever went to was when she came to Newcastle.
yeah,
So
so it's funny, but it's incredible, right? Because all this conversation reflects is the biases and the perceptions that we all
yes,
have, that we
yes.
all have, and you climbing the mountain that you have has now enabled people like Jeff and I to get some chickens and bite the heads off and jump on a bike and do all of that type of stuff, isn't it? Is that like
Honestly,
you
you're most welcome now. So, one of the things that we're doing with Iron City Motorcycles in Newcastle is that so London's got a place called the Bike Shed, which is very famous. It's like a giant cafe where a lot of the motorcycle companies will hold exhibitions and dealers will travel there to show off their bikes. And a lot of people go there. It's like a community thing. So I'm trying to create well, I'm not going to call it the Bike Shed of the North because I don't want to imitate anybody else, but we're creating our own place for people to come and enjoy motorcycles and gather, and that's in Gateshead. And funnily enough, we've just been recognized by MCN magazine, which is the motorcycle news magazine, as the #1 motorcycle dealer in the country as well. So our store at Gateshead is going to be the hub for motorcycles in the Northeast. It previously was Westgate Hill. I don't know if you remember back in the day, Ammar, when people used to do wheelies up Westgate Hill, and there used to be all these
oh,
motorcycle
incredibly
shops.
well. Yeah, yeah. Well, two things about that, and just before we move on, for the purpose of regulatory, we absolutely condemn any animals being harmed in any shape, fashion, or form, and we're certainly not encouraging anybody to do anything. That was simply one of
We're,
those biases or
we're,
perceptions that
yeah,
exist.
we're,
So I need to do that
we're,
because we're
we're
we're,
not we're
we're
not we're
being
not encouraging
constantly
anyone to have
monitored.
a raw chicken.
Yeah, no
With,
animals were harmed in
with that
making
deep
this
feather in
radio
it.
show. And certainly no chickens. But yes, the I mean, Westgate Road was synonymous, right? It was, and equally as a kid, it was a bit of a scary place because you'd see all of these bikers, and you drive past and you go, "Oh my gosh!" On a Saturday, it was, it was wonderful to see those wheelies up and down Westgate Hill. But also, Mr. Rahman, he used to fix his zips. One of the first ethnic Asian radio adverts was by the motorbike shop.
Yeah.
And he fixed zips on pretty much everything. That was a childhood memory as well, which I found really interesting because he actually said, I fix zips on suit jackets, on trousers, on and bikinis. And I was like, sort of go, what? Really? So anyway, with slight deviation, slightly relevant, but yeah. So you're recreating that amazing community experience in Gateshead, Sahil. Is that what you're doing?
Yeah, and I'd really love for yourself and your listeners to check out our Facebook page, our TikTok, our Instagram, and you can see. I mean, our last bike night of the season was about 2 weeks ago on a Thursday night, and we ended up having 180 bikers there of every kind of denomination you can think of. You know, there was Ducati riders, Kawasaki riders, Yamahas, the works, and also there was loads of families who just came to enjoy the music and. We had, am I allowed to name places who kind of attended? Yeah. So we had the boys from the Wafi Lounge bring shisha pipes down and they did a bit of a barbecue for us. We had a rock and roll band and we had some fire breathers and things like that. So it was like a really fantastic night. My kids were there, and it was just a
Amazing.
real great community feeling. And I think through the door, not just bikes, there was about 400 people there that night. So it really, really was a tremendous event.
Fantastic. Well done. Well done. And thank
Yeah.
you for doing what you're doing in breaking down barriers and sort of promoting our region in such a positive way. I mean, the other thing that you do that we're incredibly grateful for, Sahil, is your ongoing and constant support for Asian Business Connections Awards and the Aman Foundation Award, formerly the Dr. Naz Khan Award. So just tell us a little bit more about that and the Aman Foundation, please, Sahil.
So, the Aman Foundation was started by my father in 2010, after the first series of serious flooding that occurred in Pakistan. Being in the position he was in, the notoriety he gained within our industry, my dad thought, well, I'm in this position now where people actually listen to what I say and I can have an effect on others. So he decided to set up the Aman Foundation well, initially it was to provide what were called the life straws. So it was a straw that you could dip into dirty water and it would filter the water to make it palatable. So that was where he started. And then the guys at Human Appeal International said that, look, Naz, you've got so much of a following and people listen to what you say. Why don't we aim for something bigger? And so, Alhamdulillah, he decided to build an entire village in Rahim Yar Khan back in 2010. And the village was completed, I think it was in 2014. And since then, my mum's been back several times and we've continued our work. And so, what started off as just a village and 160 homes has now become a thriving community with a mosque, an orphanage, a school for girls, a school for boys, a clinic that operates several days a week. They've got an ambulance, and it's like a real it's become like a community center for all of the villages around it. So that's the work that kind of my father started. My mother's continued, and I'm sort of jumping on the bandwagon of and carrying on the work myself. So that's how it started. And then sadly, after dad passed away, it was lovely to kind of work with Ammar and you guys because obviously my dad had won an award through you. I think he won the Businessman of the Year award one year, and I
Yeah.
think that's the
No,
first time I met you, Ammar. And I think it was we met. It was Shami Chakrabarti who came once to do
she was. She was, yeah.
the. That was like the highlight of my sister's night because she's one of her heroes. And so it was great to get involved. That was my first taste with your community. And then after Dad passed, we came up with the Dr. Naz Khan Award to kind of recognize people in the community who, either they are fortunate enough to be in a position where they can do great things for others, or they are, they just decide off the backs that they can do, something altruistically. So that's kind of where this is all stemmed from. So we used to call it the Dr. Naz Khan Award, but I just didn't want to. I don't know. I think he probably would have got fed up with it by now as well if he was still around. And I think what it does is by calling it the Ammar Foundation Award, we want to recognize people who've either left an incredible legacy or continue to do so within our community. Because there's so many hero stories about people who do amazing things, just for the sake of wanting to help others. And I think that should be recognized. Most of the time, all of these people don't want to be recognized, but I think that means that we should recognize it ourselves.
I agree. I agree. It's I think it's a beautiful thing that you do. I think you're right in sort of highlighting that longer lasting legacy through the Aman Foundation, which is a wonderful charity, and promoting that because equally it was created by late father, may he rest in peace. The key thing from certainly this year's awards is also that we've had some 200 nominations. I'm absolutely gutted you're not going to be there, Sahil. Is
Unfortunately.
but equally for all of the right reasons. So I'm equally very proud of what you're doing and why you're doing it. So congratulations, and may your blessings be amplified a thousandfold. So well done. And if anybody's interested in finding out who our incredible, I don't know half the people right on the finalists, and I purposefully don't get involved in any of the selections. I know some people on it, and some people I know quite well, and that's always a challenge because then I have nothing to do with the judging or the selection or the shortlisting, but still find myself going, why didn't I win? Oh, thank you so much for me winning. Yeah, it's really, really hard. But yeah, it's and that's why we've got Tommy Sandu once again, hosting the event, showcasing the significant contribution of our community, and listening to your story. It's an incredible one. So what does the future look like, Sahil? What next?
Um, what next? Like I said, I can't wait to bring on next year. It's going to be exciting to start with all of these new brands. My mum even said, "Oh, your granddad used to drive a Vespa back in Pakistan," and so she's really excited to kind of get involved. There's a whole lot of new communities that we're going to be part of, and like I said, I'm really excited to kind of bring them back to the northeast. The motorcycle scene's been missing a little bit of this. Community in some of these brands, so I'll be really excited to bring them back and give everybody somewhere to come and hang out. And I can't wait for you guys to come and visit the store. This is not the weather for it, but as soon as the spring season kicks in, then I'm going to give you both a personal invite to come down and experience what is a fantastic place.
Excellent. Looking
No,
forward to it.
can't wait. Can't wait. And where do people go to find out more, Sahil? So you mentioned Facebook. What should
Iron
they be
City
following
Motorcycles.
on Facebook? Iron City Motorcycles.
Yeah,
And is
or
that
if you want
across all social
to visit
media?
us, we're open all year round at Ellison Road in Gateshead. That's the home of Harley Davidson in Gateshead. And soon to be
Great.
home of Harley Davidson and Kawasaki in Gateshead.
Excellent. Well done. Thank you ever so much for joining us, Sahil.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting me.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sahil.
Thank you. Bye.
It was wonderful to have Sahil on our show, as always, and hearing what a beautiful story and all that passion and love for everything that he does.
Yeah, and it's love for something which ordinarily you wouldn't think an Asian family is behind all of the brands that he's involved in. So that's kind of, you feel really especially proud when that is the case.
Oh, without a doubt.
If you
Without a
imagine,
doubt.
if you imagine
Anyway,
about
I all I was going to say, Jeff, we've got a couple of minutes, and one of the
yeah,
things that I briefly want to do is share this screen. Give me 1 second. Um, because it is all of our finalists for this year. And thank you ever so much for our incredible sponsors. So the finalists this year, third sector, we've got Dragonfly Trust, the Indian Association Northeast, the Anglo-Asian Friendship Society, the Pakistani Cultural Society, the BMA Network, Tees Valley, Tees Business, Dr. Rashpal Singh, Alt Labs, Linthorpe Pharmacy, Lycus, public sector, Dr. Iqbal Syed, Jabir Ahmed, Juna Satyan, and Umar Hanif. Professional, Anu Kora, Jerry Arnaja, Poonam Singh, Sahil Nair, Nazmeen Akhtar, Priyanka Jadka. Independent, Kamran Ali, Mumbai Cafe, Vivi Face, Abe, Peter Salim, Bayal Singh, Health and Life Science, Aisha Purvis, Safwan Akram, Imran Ahmed, and Shkun Chada, and Business or Scale Up, as we're calling it, Surbhi Vadera, Mr. Bhavesh Vasa, Uma Malhotra, Mai Delhi, and Dr. Atif Sayed. What do you think about that? What a brilliant selection of beautiful people doing so much.
amazing, amazing. It's going to be. I mean, it just makes such an amazing thing that's happening in the Northeast, and it's been just growing and growing over the last few years, and it's great to see so many amazing, successful kind of groups, organizations, and individuals that are there, and hopefully, it's going to be a brilliant event, and it's going to be inspirational for everybody.
No, without a doubt. Anyway, you've been listening to Ammar and
Jalf.
live on our weekly radio show. We'll be back next week with all of your news, views, and some clues. And please do check out the ABC website. Best of luck to all of the finalists at the ABC Awards next week. And also, thank you ever so much to all of our sponsors, some of whom we'll get on, and obviously Sahil for continuing to support both ABC, the region, and the wonderful work that he does. It's a goodbye from me.
And goodbye from me.